only found that out myself about 18 months ago when I started watching some videos online. One of which I invite you all to watch, called Bursting Bubbles of Government Deception. Just go onto Google Video and search for Bursting Bubbles and you'll see it. It's an outstanding film. It'll introduce many of these concepts. I had to watch it probably 3 or 4 times before I fully understood most of it. Even now it's still a little bit of a mystery. But this has all been done by Robert Arthur of the Menard family, who is going to be our keynote speaker tonight. He is what we call a free man on the land. He is not a corporate fiction, a piece of paper. He is a flesh and blood living free will man. Now he is also the founder and interim director of the World Freeman Society, who is the official sponsor of Freedom Fest tonight.
It's actually turning pretty good.
And he also speaks 12 different languages. Of course, 10 of those he made up by himself. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce to you right now the man, Robert Arthur of the Menard family.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Am I on? Am I hot? Folks, thank you very much for coming out tonight. I'd like a great big round of applause for Ryan for setting this up. The man pulled $300 out of his own pocket for all of this. Of course, the World Freeman Society is going to be getting him back. So we are going to be Static, the mic addict, is going to be walking around passing his hat. A loony or a toonie from you folks, dude, is going to make us be able to do this again next year even bigger. So I want to thank Ryan for setting this up. I'd also like to thank the corporation of the city of Kelowna for charging us $300 to use our own public parks. Thanks, guys. I'd also like to thank the RCMP officers I spoke with earlier for walking around and... Dude, don't fuck with a grown man wearing a cartoon shirt. I'd like to thank the RCMP officers for communicating with me and expressing to me just how completely ignorant they are of the criminal code. I'd like to thank them for commenting on my hat while they were absent of a badge like they're supposed to have according to the Police Act. And I guarantee you, officer, if you can hear me, your boss is going to be hearing my comments about that. We live in a world, folks, where there is a very small group of people call themselves lawyers. They're a member of the law societies. These are the people who craft the words that these men with guns come and impose upon you. They call them your laws. If you ask them carefully, they will tell you you cannot understand these laws because they are not written in English, they're written in law. And you don't know what they mean. And yet, at the same time, the men with guns who call themselves peace officers have no problem breaching the peace in order to enforce these statutes, which apparently we are too much of a child to understand. This is the reality we live in. Now, I came to my knowledge because about 8 years ago, government agents came into my life and they committed absolute betrayal to me. I knew nothing more about the law than most of you now. Who here has a driver's license? Raise your hands. Okay, now who here actually read the Motor Vehicle Act before applying for their license? No one. You pay your income tax, but you don't read the Income Tax Act. You have a driver's license, but you never read the Motor Vehicle Act. And those people with guns would be very hard-pressed to prove to you that you have an obligation to ask them for permission to engage in a lawful action. Let me ask you this. Who asks for permission to engage in a lawful action? A child. Mommy, can I have a cookie? Yes, you can have a cookie. Mommy just takes the cookie. I am a man of words. I put those guys up because I could not follow them sons of bitches with the fucking internet. How do you follow that when you only got words? But I am a man of words. My very first word I spoke when I was 6 months old. It was anti-disestablishmentarianism. To be honest, it came out more like bliss. but the thought was there.
Oh, sorry.
Let me ask you this, folks. Knowing that you have never read the Motor Vehicle Act, the Income Tax Act, likely not the Criminal Code of Canada, and I, like a nut, spent about 7 years doing nothing but deconstructing that, let me ask you this question. If it was possible in Canada to achieve lawful excuse to disobey every court, every government, and every cop, provided you were not harming another human being, would you want to know how to do that? I'm here to tell you that is possible. I'm here to tell you I've done it. It is very easy to do. They are just human beings. They're only human beings and they're only using words. They are not magical creatures. There is no wizard. There is no spoon. If you read the Criminal Code of Canada, if you got a pen, write this down, folks, or Google, check out thinkfree.ca or the World Freeman Society. The Criminal Code of Canada, and before I go on, you're going to say that can't be true. I'm going to tell you a little story. There was a hunter in Nanaimo. He was out hunting for sustenance. A conservation officer came by, asked him for a license. He said, I don't have one. He said, I'm taking your gun. But he said, that's okay, I got 12 more at home. Conservation officer says, well, every time I see you, I'm going to take your firearm. But he said, that'll work until you get the last one, then you're only taking bullets, because I need this to live. Conservation officer didn't like that. He called the RCMP. They came back to his home the next day. He was growing pot. He had some firearms. He was facing 12 different charges. He called me up. I worked with him for about a week, set him up with what is called a notice of understanding and intent and a claim of right. There are examples on that table. He served it on him. 3 days later, he gets a phone call from the RCMP asking him to come in. He comes in and they have a little chat. They want him to sign an agreement. He called me, he said, should I sign this? I said, what does it say? He told me what it said. I said, yeah, sign that puppy. He got back all of his guns, all of his ammo, all of his grow-op, and he entered into an agreement that if he was out hunting and he saw a conservation officer, he simply wouldn't talk to him. We have the power to refuse intercourse with any peace officer, provided they haven't seen us breach the peace. You can ignore these people. You have no obligation to have name, identification, and if there is anyone here who can tell me, swear on the Bible, that they know when they were born, I will kiss your ass right here, because you weren't counting then. People have asked me, I've had cops ask me, what's your last name? I said, I don't have a last name, I have a family name. They said, well, what's your family name? I said, Menard. They said, what's your given names? I said, that depends on who gave them to me. For instance, you guys gave me the names That Fucking. He went, you're That Fucking Menard. Yeah. Oh, Mr. Music Man is telling me about kids.
He was really good this time. He swears up a storm. Give him some credit.
Okay, sorry, buddy. If you're showing restraint, I'll try to. Bear in mind, I didn't mess up their set when they were on, did I? Folks, if you look at the Criminal Code of Canada, you'll find something very extraordinary. Section 38 and 39. And bear in mind, what these guys did to music, I did to the law. While they were sitting there jamming, I was under a bridge going, I'm going to figure this shit out. Section 38-39, it tells us that if you are holding property and you are holding it under a claim of right, you can use whatever level of force is required to protect that property, even against those who feel they have a legal right to it, like police officers. That claim of right is proven right there to be a lawful excuse to engage in an action which otherwise would land you in jail. Section 126 and 127. Read that and it will tell you that if you have a lawful excuse, you can disobey every court, every government, every order, every bylaw in the land. Now, this does not free you to anarchy. It doesn't mean you can go through life harming another human being. You're still bound by the law. You can't harm another human being. You can't damage property. You can't use fraud in your contracts. But what you can do is grow, smoke, and sell all the pot you want.